Why, hello, and welcome back or welcome to Workplace Grief, where we talk about grief in the workplace and what leaders, organizations, and HR can do to positively navigate death in the workplace, including increasing culture or deepening culture and saving lots of money. So my name is Kim Hamer, and I am founder of Workplace Grief, and today we're going to talk about what not to do when a boss dies. So 11 days ago was September 8th, and it marked the second year anniversary of Queen Elizabeth's death. Now, I'm sure you're like, why am I talking about Queen Elizabeth's death? Because when she died, she was the boss of a lot. Now, I know technically she wasn't the boss of anything, but because she represented so many people through many generations, people waited in lines for days to pay respect to her. That's the boss of something. The day of her service was a national bank holiday. Businesses closed. People lined the streets to say their final farewells to her. Her funeral was televised worldwide. And of course, I could totally see the parallels between her death and that of a boss's death. And this came up recently because I reached out to someone who reached out to me a couple months ago in my DMs. Now, I'm remembering this event and all the things that led up to the service to me, it was like a great way to talk about death in the workplace and what companies should do. So over the last 3 years, before I even had fully formed that I was going to be speaking to companies about death in the workplace, I came across someone whose boss died. And what she said really surprised me. She said it was barely acknowledged at work. Only a few people checked in with me to see if I was okay. The company sent out an announcement, and that was it. So, that was it. That was her boss. And then she said, I felt very sad and very lonely. Now, I know we can't be in charge of employees' loneliness, but we certainly can help them not be lonely, especially when there's a death. Now, of course, over the last year, I have received a number of DMs asking for support because their boss died and no one seemed to care. And then it's always followed by the email address of their HR person. This topic, how your company treats a boss's death, came up again recently when I got a DM from an employee whose boss died a couple months back, and then I saw that he changed jobs. So when I spoke to him a couple months back, this is what he shared. He said, the day after my boss died suddenly, our whole team had a different boss. And the new boss didn't do anything to integrate the new team. So he said only some team members acknowledged our loss, and there was a company email that went out, but it seemed like it was written by HR or chat. He said our team never had the private meeting with our new leader. Several of the new team members did offer their condolences, but very few people in the whole company asked how we were doing. A general announcement was sent out about his service, and the company sent out what I thought an insulting, unhelpful 4-page brochure about grief, and then the phone number for us to contact our EAP if we needed support. And then he said what made it worse is that so many people were awkward talking to us, not knowing what to do or what to say. What pisses me off so much about this is that my boss brought in millions of dollars a year for this company. We were a very profitable team, and it was like they just figured we'd be profitable elsewhere, and it was like the contributions he made didn't matter. So, unfortunately, this is way more common than I'd like to admit, than I kind of hoped. I do this because I know it's way more common, but it makes me sad when I think about it. Companies that have no process for acknowledging death often wing it, and the results are costly. So I got this thing a while back, thought about writing an article about it, and then I saw on LinkedIn that this guy had switched companies, and so I reached out to him and said, tell me what happened. And here was his reply. He said, about a month ago, about a month after my boss died, I just lost my drive, and I didn't care anymore. So I started looking for a new company. And here's the kicker, you all. He said, I took with me over $1 million worth of business. Most of my clients were happy to move with me, especially when they heard about the company's lack of acknowledgement of my boss's death. I want to read that again. Most of my clients were happy to move with me, especially when they heard about the company's lack of acknowledgement of my boss's death. So when you don't acknowledge the death well of somebody in your company, you could lose. I mean, this company lost millions of dollars of business. And then he went on to say, several of my teammates have also left the company. So there's more money that's been lost. So, when I first spoke to this person a couple years ago, so I want to go back to the person I spoke to a couple years ago, because what she said to me recently was, I still think about my boss. She was a good boss. And this is such a great example of how you acknowledge that loss in a company, of how you acknowledge that loss in a company really matters. Winging it is not a great mental health, and I want to talk about that for a second, or business strategy. If you have a wing it policy that doesn't include a curated and meaningful response that aligns with your business strategies and your culture, you are going to lose money, and you're going to cost more money in mental health and your healthcare costs. Let's just be really honest here. We can't just pretend it's like no big deal, because it is a big deal. So if you have a policy where you're winging it, please contact me below. I'm going to leave my LinkedIn information below. If you see this on YouTube, and if you see it on LinkedIn, you'll see it there. What I really want you to know is what you do when an employee matters. It matters a great deal, because you as a human matter. And that's why I'm so passionate about this topic, because death is so incredibly uncomfortable. We don't know how to deal with it, but that doesn't mean we shouldn't deal with it. And when we're talking about the expense of health costs, so many companies are really concerned about health costs, and they're concerned about the rising increase of mental health costs. If you don't have a strategy that deals with this, I know it's a small little section of mental health, but if you don't have a strategy that deals with death in the workforce, you are costing your company business, money, and more importantly, you're hurting your employees, which again is costing you a lot of money. So finally, as I always end all my videos, which I already just said, but please remember, you matter. You really matter. And what you do and how you have your team and your organization show up when there's a death really makes a big difference, not just in the short term, but in the long term of so many lives. So please remember. All right, y'all. Thank you so much for stopping by. Don't forget to stop by, like and subscribe. All right. Make it a great day. Bye.